The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. And I think not long after landing, you had your debut. We'll talk about kind of the whole occasion of it, but it was now if my clicker will work, here we go. It's for the International Princess Championship against Yuki Ari. Now, firstly, and let's just bring up some more pictures. There you are on your entrance, and I believe this was for the championship match, sporting items of new gear as well there, and the streamers going off. The big Tron, and what a way, what a match, what an opponent to make your Japanese debut. And could you, I bet you had to pinch yourself slightly when you found out that was going to be your first match over in Japan.
Yeah, majorly. That's a moment that I've pictured in my head so many times. So many times that when I made my entrance, I knew exactly what the cameras were going to do and everything. So I moved perfectly in time to them because I hadn't overly thought it out. But it turns out I've pictured it so many times that I knew exactly what I was going to do. It was incredible. And yeah, the entrance gear I'd wanted for ages, but I sort of said to myself, well, if I'm not wearing it in Kurikan, then where am I going to wear it? So I had the wonderful Smoking Smithy in Cornwall here. Him and his partner make wonderful, wonderful things. And they made me this absolute goodie. And it's wonderful because you have the Cornish national tartan on there with the sporran and the sort of strip of fabric. But they swap out, and I can have the hunting tartan as well, so we can change color schemes. It's all very versatile and lovely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. All of the symbolism and everything in it was wonderful. How it came together. I gave them a couple of notes about, hey, I'd like this and this and this, and I have the waves because I grew up about 100 yards from the beach. So yeah, they just took it in hand and knew exactly what they were doing and knew the spirit of the piece. So it was wonderful. And I mean, Cornwall played such a huge part in that entrance. I had music by the band Honey, which is Ellie Lykos and Sarah Tyrrell and Siege. They play the music that I come out to. So it was great. It just felt like I was at home.
And let's talk about your opponent there, Yuki Ari, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly. But was there any differences that stood out to you facing somebody like Yuki Ari, obviously a well-renowned, renowned Joshi wrestler? Was there any differences between wrestling her as a talent compared to some of the UK talent that you would typically face over here on UK shores?
They have tough kicks and they have, she was a fearless opponent. She came flying off of the top turnbuckle there with the biggest drop kick I've ever had. And I thought, okay, she's all in. They're just fantastic, wonderful, beautiful, giving, generous people. I haven't met a consistently throughout the entire roster nice, welcoming, hardworking, and generous bunch of people. Not that to that degree from top to bottom ever before.
That's really awesome.
They are such wonderful people, and I'd be forever grateful to them for that experience because they enhanced it so much with their love and with their incredible welcome.
Yeah, and a couple of things that happened off the back of that debut match. You got a fair bit of press coverage for that championship match in a Japanese wrestling magazine, and you also met the legendary Aja Kong backstage. after your match. Absolutely, and I am skipping ahead a little bit here, but I mean, I brought up this picture a moment ago of the Progress Tag Team Championship as it was then, and then going through the year, certainly 2018, we saw the downfall, didn't we, of FSU, the attack, the storyline, the build, the drama. It was a year-long build that the two of you had, all leading us to Hello Wembley. September 2018, and a match that's fondly remembered by wrestling fans all over the UK and further afield even today. But I mean, that build was something special, and I know that there's a special, I think, a 10-minute long video on Progress's YouTube channel, kind of documenting the partnership and then the downfall and the rivalry and the war that took place over that year leading up to Hello Wembley. And we just spoke about kind of the two of you and your rise as a tag team, but that kind of year-long storyline building up to Wembley was also very special, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's probably, like, as a body of work, my proudest body of work. Like, the match at Wembley certainly isn't my favorite match that I've done. I don't think it would be Mark's favorite match either, but it's one of my favorite memories, like, for me and one of my closest friends, to be like one of the feature attractions on the biggest independent show in England in I don't know how many years is really special. And the year that we spent building the match is I'm really proud of that body of work, because there's a lot of, like, trials and tribulations as a part of it. The turn obviously happened in the September, and we hadn't touched, but we'd interacted a lot up until sort of like that January, and in that January was when I tore my first pec. So then I was injured, but Progress were, like, committed to the story, so I'd still get to appear on shows in my sling, and we furthered the story in different ways. I ended up cutting a promo on him genuinely in the hospital as I woke up from surgery, which was a really cool one. Yeah, just like the things that we did. We involved his band. I jumped his roadie on stage at one of his gigs. Um, it was pretty cool stuff. And for it to have taken a whole calendar year, and then the story kind of lasts a whole another year, because I won a number one contendership by beating Mark in Wembley, and then a year later he rejoins me to help me beat Walter and David Starr to win the title that I got the contract from the
Yeah.
match with him. So it's like, it's kind of a 2-year story up until I win the unified title, um, of us sort of like falling out and then coming back together,
Yeah.
albeit as nasty bad guys.
Yeah, a
So
phenomenal
yeah,
story.
I love that story for sure.
Absolutely, and just a few pictures, and I couldn't get over how I don't think I've ever seen ladders as big as that. To be honest with you, that's just absolutely crazy. But the match itself, truly phenomenal, and it's still available on Progress on Demand, I'm sure. And we had Ashley get in touch with us before we went live. Ashley Clements, how much did you hate the tables from Wembley in your TLC match against Mandrews? None of it looked easy, my friend. But
Yeah,
Ashley wants to know about the tables.
they didn't break. That's what Ashley's getting at there. Matthew from Botchamania put together a hilarious video where the tables, where he sort of like chronicled all of the tables not breaking. Yeah, it was a bit of a waking nightmare. You spend a year building to a match. The match itself just costs the promotion hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds because of all the tables and the ladders that they have to bring in. And then you get out there, you're in front of thousands of people, and you start going through this thing, which as a performer, best case scenario, this is going to be pretty painful, but hopefully the audience is really going to enjoy it, and we're going to put together a beautiful piece of art. And then this furniture that you have involved in this storyline is not cooperating with you at all, and your head is bouncing off the wood instead of it going through it, and yeah, it just carried on going. And when I had Mark upside down on top of the ladder for what ended up being the last move of the match for the next up driver, and we've set the table up, I am thinking of myself in that moment, if this table doesn't break, I might kill him. Because if it, I mean, these things have been so unpredictable and they've not cooperated at all. Like they do have metal legs. Do you know what I mean? And if one
Yeah.
of those metal legs, and we are genuinely, I don't know, 10, 12 feet. My feet are, his feet are probably 18 foot in the air. So if a metal leg goes through his head as we land, this is going to be awful, you know. But the last one broke. We landed. Neither of us were seriously hurt. I think we both had plenty of scrapes and scratches and bumps and bruises, but we managed to get through it. So yeah, to answer Ashley's Clemence's question, how much do I hate the tables from Wembley? Yeah, I still have nightmares about them, mate. So cheers. Thank you very much for bringing that up. What a
Actually, that's your fault for bringing that up. I'm going to blame Ashley all day long for that. But you mentioned earlier New Orleans and Macaulay Culkin 2018 and making your debut in a WWE ring around that time. And I think I may have witnessed the debut or very, very kind of early matches of Flash Morgan Webster in the WWE ring, because I actually attended New Orleans for 2018 WrestleMania 34, I believe it was. A wonderful week, a fantastic week of pro wrestling and a great party atmosphere. But on the Friday night, I saw you come out to WrestleMania Access and have a fantastic match. It may well have been against Pete Dunne. I can't quite remember. But something seemed odd about your gear, Flash. Now, enlighten us as to what I might be alluding to, because there was an issue with the gear. And tell us exactly what you came out dressed in, if you don't.
So I one of the major rules for any wrestler who is traveling internationally is never check your gear. We're all told you never check it. They lose that bag, you are screwed. So again, with this in mind, I had my carry-on, I had my gear in my carry-on, and I was about to board my flights to because first stop Amsterdam, second then I do believe was Detroit, and then the third was New Orleans. So I get on my first flight and I'm about to board, and they say there's no room for any more carry-ons, and I'm like, I am not letting this out my sight. And they're like, it'll be fine. You can pick. It'll go to the other end. Absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be great. And I've tried to fight tooth and nail, and they said there's no way, we have no more room. It can't come on. And they said it has to be checked. And I said okay. And I said to them, this is the biggest weekend of my life. You can't lose this. But we won't. And they did. So I got to. I remember getting to Amsterdam, and I remember we got into Amsterdam late, and I remember thinking there was maybe it was supposed to have been 3 hours between my flights, or 2 hours between my flights, and then it became, the time I ran there, it was like 45 minutes between flights. And I remember just thinking, there's no way the bags are following me. There's no way. And then I get to Detroit, and I have a big layover in Detroit, and I've got to pick my bags up there. When I get to Detroit, it's not there, and I'm just absolutely devastated. I remember seeing Chris Brooks in the airport, and he could tell as soon as he saw me that my face was like, I told him, and he was like, he was getting it for me. And then it became me going, right, okay, so I have 3 matches. Well, I have 2 matches this first day. One is me versus Pete Dunne versus Mark Andrews at Progress, and then I'm also on Access. And I was like, right, I don't have any gear. I don't have boots. I don't have knee pads. I don't have any sort of gear. And I was like, right, okay, I need to try to figure this out as fast as I can. And it's just me in Detroit Airport messaging, texting. And again, it ain't just about finding it. It's about finding people that are the same size as you and stuff that would fit. So Mark Andrews, my great friend, was already in New Orleans, and I told him, and he was able to go to the High Spots merch table and buy some knee pads for me, which was great because, to be honest, my old ones were a little bit scabby and I probably needed some new ones. So that got one of them done. And Mark Andrews is roughly the same size as me. So he was able to slide those knee pads on and was like, yep, they fit. Good stuff. There was no boots there, and boots are very expensive. Luckily for me, I've got a friend called Tyler Bate, same shoe size as me. Tyler Bate gave me his boots. Brilliant. Now the next part is the trousers. How are you gonna solve this problem? So I was like, there's not going to be any tights. I'm going to have to find something that I can wear. And I thought to myself, right, especially what works for me is I could probably get away with some jeans. Now, I'm not quite sure whose these are off the top of my head, there's 2 here. I believe I was given 2 sets of jeans, but I can't remember which pair. And one of them might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of these 2 people. Mark Andrews gave me a pair of jeans, and the other person who gave me a pair of jeans was a man called Orange Cassidy. So I'm not quite sure which one. I remember I have these 2 pair of jeans, but I can't remember which ones I put on for those 2 matches and wore. But I'm pretty sure that I made my WWE debut in a pair of Tyler Bates boots, a pair of knee pads that Mark Andrews bought for me just 24 hours before, and a pair of Orange Cassidy's jeans. So if it wasn't for my wrestling friends and for all the good people who were helping me that weekend, I wouldn't have had anything to wear for my WWE debut. And luckily, they found my bags just 24 hours later. And big shout out to Thomas Juba, who drove me back and forth the airport 2 or 3 times that weekend to see and finally find my bag. So big shout out to Tom Juba for that.
Incredible story. Thank you so much for telling that. Something didn't look right when I was watching you. I had to find out the real kind of insight into that. Probably one of the best TV shows I think has been produced in the last 20 years, and possibly some of Ricky Gervais's finest work, considering everything he's done in his career. But
yes.
Absolutely incredible. Now, I know that in series 1, you were only involved in maybe 1 or 2 episodes. And we were introduced to you as Recorder Boy, weren't we? And there we go.
Yeah, there he is.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to get out the recorders and to
good, because I don't have any.
Live out.
I don't have any for this exact reason.
Playing a recorder through each nostril. But skipping back a little bit, tell us a little bit about how you first got involved with Afterlife.
So it was a very standard procedure for me. It was literally came through as an audition. Especially when times are good. Like, I could be banging through 2 or 3 of those a week. So it was a case of like, not to be too dismissive of it, but it was like, oh, this is another one. Because like when I do with auditions, like you don't get them like 99.9% of the time. So like you can work as hard as you want, but you actually don't get the job. So eventually you become just a little bit jaded to it all. But I was like, oh right, Ricky Gervais, Netflix. All right, let's go do the do. Did the audition, got the part. A couple of weeks later, I was on the set. I was there for 90 minutes. Shot all my stuff and then went home. And I was like, right, well that was that then. That was good. Little did I know the sort of impact it would have, because I'd only read my bit. Like that was the only bit that I was sent. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's quite funny. Fair enough. That's cool. And it wasn't until it came out and like the reaction started flooding in, I was like, oh, this is actually something quite special, isn't it? Jesus. I don't think anyone was anticipating that. But by this time, my career had fallen into one of its many slumps. One so severe at that point that I'd gone off to do pizza delivery, which I did for about a year. And in the interim between Afterlife, shooting that Afterlife and it coming out, I'd basically resigned myself to the fact that I wasn't going to be acting again, because this is a job of momentum essentially. So like once that momentum's gone, it's very, very hard to get it back again. And I was like, well, I didn't make enough of a splash, so I doubt anything's going to happen. Anywho, so I get the call from Ricky's people saying that he wants you to come back. And not only does he want you back, he wants you in all 6 episodes of series 2. Wow. And I was like, yeah, all right, yeah, I'll do that. And that's how it happened. He rescued me from my potential future of sling and slice for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and what describe a typical day on set, because going back to some of your other fantastic work, Horrible Histories and Bad Education, you're working with an incredible cast, a fantastic crew, great scripts. I can only assume that. And a thrill ride to be part of it. Describe a typical day and what it was like for you and some of your experiences on set.
So one of the big things about a Ricky Gervais set is that he likes to clock off early. So generally a shooting day, not including sort of like hair and makeup beforehand and rigging and everything like that, a standard shooting day will have cameras start rolling at 8 and wrap up at 7. That's generally your standard shooting day, especially for British telly. In his case, he likes to be done by 4. So we're trimming 3 hours off the day already, which is really quite extraordinary. And he does that through a combination of being the dude, because like he's not only the actor but the writer and the director, so he's across most of the creative aspects of the show, and so he knows exactly what he wants. So when we come in, like the cameras will already be set up, and usually we cross shoot so that he can use the same track of dialogue. Everything is basically designed to be as efficient as possible, which then means that the time we save doing that allows us to clock off early, but also gives us an opportunity for us actors to have a bit of a play around. Generally, that wasn't the case so much for me, because like eventually I ended up working with David Earl, who played Brian Gittins. And the thing with Brian Gittins as a character and David Earl as an actor is that all you need do to succeed is say nothing. Like you just got to sit there and watch him go. So that was broadly my job. Come in, say a couple of lines, and then just admire David Earl doing his thing. And that was my day.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I loved about Afterlife was it was a comedy. There was a lot of funny one-liners and a lot of sarcasm, but it was extremely poignant. And obviously, you know, the main topic was about life and death, and how he kind of dealt with life after, you know, grieving for the death of his wife and the various trials and you know, the turbulence that he went through as a human being after the death of his wife. And I mean, you probably weren't involved in a lot of those poignant scenes. You were involved in more of the comedy scenes, from what I remember.
Yeah, but I was basically there to keep the mood up.
Absolutely, but you know, that's exactly my point. Is, you know, the script was a mixture of comedy and poignancy, and you know, it had its light and dark to it. But you know, as an actor, is that kind of an interesting type of set or environment to be a part of, when it's not kind of strictly comedy and it's not strictly, you know, poignant or dark, but you had that mixture, you had that balance, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because like I think this is sort of, I don't know, maybe it's an illusion or something, but there's this sort of idea that, like, you know, when we're there, we're all very deep in the process and what am I doing here? But especially, unlike there's true for this for most sets, but especially a Ricky Gervais set, everything's very light, and I think that was important because when you're dealing with those sorts of subjects and when you're, you know, trying to blend in those elements of comedy with those elements of pathos, you're treading a very, very fine line, and you know it can go either one or two ways. Because if you put in too much drama, that negatively impacts the comedy and sort of makes it mawkish. Whereas if you sort of put too much comedy in, then the drama completely deadens its impact.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work. And I think the only real way you can sort of maintain that balance is to just keep the set light. And so, like, you know, he posted up on both, I think it's on both the Netflix channels and also his personal YouTube. That's why there are so many bloopers. That's why there are so many outtakes, because it's just a fun place to be and an explorative place to be, like, you know, where we can muck around and maybe we'll find something funnier than that's actually in the script.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, like, you know, he casts people, you know, blowing smoke up my own ass here, but like he casts people because he knows that they're good at what they need to do. And so, like, he barely has to sort of direct. He doesn't need to be that hands-on, because he can go, right, well, you know what you're doing, you know what you represent. And so you could just go straight in. And so, yeah, it felt like it was a very freeing set. And I suppose in that way, that really helped with the way it was then presented, because a fun set, you get a fun series, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like sometimes you can sort of sense there's like, if it was a tense set, you can sort of sense it when you're watching it. Like, you know, there's no way it can be hidden by the edit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been relatively lucky throughout my career that most of the sets that I've worked on have been absolutely lovely. And I think that tends to be the case because it's all, you know, we're all professionals trying to make a thing here.
Yeah, totally. And I'm going to bring up a few more pictures. There you are as James in the newsroom, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah,
and there you are
doing the West Side Story business. Lovely bit of business.
And with the man
me and the boss man.
With the man himself, Ricky Gervais. And
go back soon if this wrist ever heals.
I'm sure it will. But let me ask you, how did you first appear on WWE's radar?
Well, I'm trying to well, I remember, I assume it was Pete. Thanks Pete for helping me out there. because obviously I used to train with him and tag with him. I think he spoke to Jim Smallman about putting me forward, and then he came to training and watched some stuff, and obviously I was friends with Jim through Progress, and then I just got an email from them, and they invited me down to do some shows for them. So I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 sets of tapings. I did.
You did Cambridge and Birmingham, didn't you, in 2018?
Yeah, but I was at the Liverpool one, but I was injured. And that was another tricky stage in my life, but I was very grateful that they offered me a contract at that age, but it was not the right time for me to sign with them at all. I was 18. I was a kid. I had no idea what I was doing in life. I needed to travel. I wanted to travel to improve my confidence as a person and to get over this dread of wrestling that I had, just this anxiety. So I'm glad I got over that, and I'm glad that I was able to travel, experience the world, build my connections with Japan, and then to come back and work for WWE. It was a nice full circle moment again.
Absolutely, because I think you did eventually sign with them in 2021. So obviously you got a bit of a 3-year gap there. But as you just explained, you used that 3 years to travel the world, discover who you are, build that confidence, and come back a more mature and more accomplished performer all round. Where WWE, you're in a better position for signing with WWE in 2021 as opposed to 3 years earlier, weren't you?
Yeah, I was definitely more mature. I say more mature. Don't know, debatable. But I had my head. I was a bit more level and stable, I think is the most sensible term for it. I'd grown up, and I thought, right, I've had my fun now. It's time to actually earn some money and settle down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring up some pictures that might bring back memories of your time in a WWE ring there. I think your first match back was teaming with Mako, wasn't it? And possibly this match here against Isla Dawn and Kaylee Ray. And like I say, your opportunity to reconnect once again with Mako. There all seems to be these kind of moments in your career where you're kind of bumping into and reconnecting with Mako, but teaming with her on your kind of return match in 2021 after just getting signed. Another special moment for you.
Yeah, I swear all these moments I have, they put so much pressure on me. The first thing I had to do there was a promo. Why? They know what I'm literally. Look at me. Do you think I can speak? I've got the memory of a fish. I'm all over the place. So I was so nervous about that. And then when I got that out the way, to be able to tag with Miko again, it was nice to have someone I knew outside the ring and before there, but it was added pressure because I didn't want to let her down. But again, that match, the people in that match, it was just, I was very lucky to be in the match, and I enjoyed it when the stress was out the way. Had
Absolutely.
a nice first after.
But going to bring up some more pictures here, and some of the matches you had. I think Isla Dawn, Nina Samuels, and Bobby Turner, Stevie Turner. Sorry, my apologies. And some of the matches you had there. I think that's Amal, and it looked like you were having a ton of fun in the NXT UK, in the WWE ring, getting your hand raised there by Tom Scarborough, of course. What are some of your favourite memories from your time in NXT UK? And I think you were there, solidly for that year or two up until they closed the doors in 2022. What are some of your fondest memories?
That period of my life was incredible. It was like, the way I describe it to people is I say, when you get older and you're an adult and like you have all these friends, but you're always busy and you can't see them. It was like for every 4 weeks we would have 2 weeks in London, and it was just like a school trip. Like, you're with your mates, you're all staying in this hotel, everyone's in the hotel, your friends are on the same corridor as you, and it was just people like B Priestley that I'd been friends with for years, but she'd lived in Japan and I'd been all over, and we just never really got a chance to see each other. So to be stuck with each other for 2 weeks in an environment like that, the friends I've made there, I will never ever ever forget, and I still speak to them all now and see them. It was like a little family, and I'm so lucky that I got to be there at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about the first thing they got you to do when you signed was do a promo. But you seem to handle some of your microphone work really, really well, and quite confident. You came across really, really, and a lot of fun in some of your backstage segments. And there was B Priestley there, you alongside Mako. But I'm guessing that you probably weren't as comfortable in the beginning, but probably you became a lot more confident and started to enjoy the process of working behind a microphone, doing them promos eventually, didn't you?
Yeah, like it's funny because that last photo you put in of me being Miko, that promo took us about 45 minutes to film purely because B was laughing, I was laughing, then we finally stopped laughing, then Miko started laughing. Oh god, it's a nightmare. But yeah, I don't mind talking. Like, I'm happy to talk. It's just, as a person, as you can probably tell, I'm all over the place. I get my words mixed up, I get distracted. So I think when I have to try and be serious, I sometimes struggle. Like, I think, oh god, I'm just all over the place. But now I think people just know what I'm like and they expect me just to be all over the place. I think when you know me, you kind of expect some sort of mishmash, but hopefully we get to the point in the end.
Some sort of randomness, But
Yeah.
So Charles is actually one of the first people I saw wrestle in a British independent ring. I didn't really know much independent British wrestling before I started training. I went and watched a couple of shows, and he was involved in a couple of matches I saw. And I just, from day one, I was like, he's fantastic, like genuinely fantastic. So then when I started training, the goal was at some point, hopefully, I get to wrestle Charles Crowley. And yeah, 10 months in, singles matches booked in, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Are you sure you want? Are you sure me? Like, you talking about to the right person?" But there's been a lot of comparisons. I don't know if anyone saw the promo videos that it got exchanged between myself and Charles, and there's a bit of truth in there. Buried within the character is that there was a lot of comparisons, especially at UBW, between me and Charles, and sort of how we interact with the crowd, and we're a bit silly, and obviously more so the good guy character. So I think that match was more, it was a moment really of kind of sort of acknowledging that in a secret way. But yeah, I mean, yeah, very grateful to get the sort of launch pad from UBW and Square One to end up in a position with less than a year's of show experience, going, like you say, one-on-one with one of the absolute best this country has to offer. Absolutely speechless.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the promos and the build to the match, and the promos you cut on one another, the videos you cut on one another. But knowing that Crowley is such a masterful storyteller, probably the best in the business, regardless of wherever you go. But was there any added pressure on you knowing that whatever he put out on you, you had to match it?
Yeah, that was literally that was my worry the whole time. I was like, I know he's going to do one because I've been told that he was going to do one. And I was like, all I hoped was that he got his out first and I had plenty of time to think and to come up with something that sort of matched it in my own way without, copying him. Because that's not something that, as much as it's nice to be compared to someone as a compliment, especially someone like him, I don't want to be a carbon copy. So it was to do sort of a similar promo along the same lines, and I just hope I struck the sort of the right tone and did it justice. I know he enjoyed it, so to be anyone else's opinion, it doesn't matter.
Because when I'm not Nightshade, I actually am a real people person. I love chatting to people and getting to know new people from different walks of life with different stories. And I absolutely love meeting different fan bases and people from different cultures. So it's really interesting and really eye-opening. And like you mentioned, the fan bases are so different in different countries that you go to. I'm really lucky that I have been to Spain so many times with RCW, but they are one of my literal favorite places to wrestle because their fan base is insane, and there's so many Nightshade lovers over there, which just blows my mind. But I literally have such a crazy following over there that come for every single show, and I've built a bit of a relationship with this audience, and I get to see them every single time I'm there, and it just feels really special. Like everything is just really special.
Yeah, let's talk about that then, because there you are. Unfortunately, you're no longer the RCW champion. I think you dropped that towards the back. In fact, one of your last matches of 2023, I think you dropped it. But
Yes.
and here's a picture of yourself going up against Zaya Brookside, who most recently, I think, appeared in an Impact ring. So she's doing really, really well. But I mean, you also performed for Lucha Libre Barcelona, as well as Revolution Championship Wrestling, both based in Barcelona. I've got to be honest with you, there's probably not many finer places in the world that you could be and not only spending a few days, but performing in front of. Barcelona is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Yeah, mine too. I absolutely adore Barcelona, and I adore both RCW and Lucha Libre Barcelona. And like I said, the fan base is just incredible. Unfortunately, I did lose the championship to Takumi Iroha on one of my last wrestling shows of the year. I believe it was the 17th of December. Could be wrong with that date though. But I was lucky enough.
I believe.
Yes, that's the one. And Takumi is just an outstanding, incredible wrestler. She really is the complete and utter total package. And so I feel very fortunate that I was able to drop the title to someone with such an incredible name and such incredible talent. And just having a match with Takumi is, amazing in its own right. But I was the champion for over a year. I was the champion for a year.
420 days.
Yeah.
420. That's absolutely phenomenal. And I think Takumi there, you wrestled a few times in 2023 over the championship, and it was that final match in December where she did finally where she overcame you, and she took your championship. But a wonderful championship reign, and like I say, a company that you're very, very associated with and have a lot of passion for. But I'm guessing that you'll be looking to go back over to RCW or maybe Lucha Libre Barcelona sometime in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already going over there for their first show of the year, which is in March. So that's a bit of an exclusive. I don't think I'm advertised yet.
That's all right. We like exclusives.
But I absolutely, even though I'm no longer champion, I'm going to be trying my absolute best to get it back. And I will be doing my absolute hardest to remain going over there and being in the wrestling circuit in Spain. So they've definitely not seen the last of me. That's for sure.
No, I'm sure, for sure. Let's get on to recent events and let's talk about this. And there you are. And I'm just going to get rid of Richie's question. Thank you, Richie. As the All Wales champion, being defended on occasions in Pro Wrestling Chaos, which is where you won it a couple of months back against Danny Luna. But I mean, that bout has a history, a lineage through Dragon Gate Pro and synonymous with people like Mike Hitchman, Wild Boar, and individuals like that. But you were there during the Dragon Pro days, weren't you, when it was being defended through 2018 and 2019? Was that a championship that you always had your eye on?
It was the first one, because Dragon Pro really was my first place where independent wrestling and a certain form of wrestling was kind of open to me. So Dragon Pro really was the place. So that belt to me was, okay, well, if I can get my hands on this, then I know that I'm starting to get to where I want to get to. It was very much the first prize in wrestling I wanted to try and achieve. And I thought it was gone. I thought that the chance of being able to get that was just gone when everything went away. So it was amazing, really, when it just came back around. Because everybody always says in wrestling, everything comes back around. Don't worry about it now; it'll come back around. And most of the time, you're like, okay, maybe I'll believe it. But this one, I just didn't think was going to come back around, man. But here we are.
And it did. And I think it was September. Danny Luna at a Pro Wrestling Chaos show, and you finally got it. You won it. It's a beautiful championship, first of all, really beautiful belt. Let's say a lot of prestige behind it. What did it mean to you as a competitor, as a performer, to become the All Wales champion? And like I say, it does carry a lot of prestige behind it, and you are now its holder. What did it mean to you when you got that 3 count?
All of the best Welsh wrestlers have held this belt, like all of the best ones. So it was just a case of, okay, I'm up there now, because it's only been passed forward to, I guess I've just said it, but passed forward to the best. And that was a real big, okay, I know what people are seeing me as now. This is what I've been feeling in myself for a while. And now more and more people are seeing it. So it was quite a big moment for me personally. Like I said, it was the first belt that I wanted to really go for. And after the year that Brendan had with that belt, bringing it up to the next level and really showing off, what a Welsh wrestler really can do, especially with the year that he had. And then Danny Luna taking it. And then with the year that she's had, taking it off of her, is the ball's rolling now with Brendan, with Danny, and now.
I described it as a star-making performance when it happened September 2022 with this match here against Brooks, Return of the Fly at the Dome, of course, and just a few pictures of the day of the match. And it was, and the match was violent but emotional. It was a no disqualification match. But I used to host a Progress hype show, and I described on the very next one after that match that was definitely a star-making performance for yourself. I know Brooks cut a very impassionate promo about you after the match. And like I say, I think that was a bit of a turning point for you, wasn't it? I think you described it as a turning point yourself, but take us back to that occasion.
Yeah, I mean, keep using the word culmination, so I wish I had a different synonym to use, but yeah, that wasn't about the 6 months of build in progress to that match. That was about 8 years of being the closest of friends, being tag partners, like living on his sofa every weekend for 3 days, like seeing his mom more than I saw my mom. Things of that. Like it's just a combination of something more important than progress. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to progress. It's just to me and Chris, and then to the audience members who've been around longer than the new regime. This was something really special to get to have. And obviously it got pushed to the brink, and you had obviously Masa Takahashi and Lykos 2 ringside as well, which added to the drama. And it was again, another one of those moments where I feel like I got to show that I can do more than people maybe expect. And I think that's the attitude I went in with, like, not only to myself, but I guess not that I had to prove anything to him, but to prove to Chris that I was way better than even maybe he thought, which I don't think I had to prove to him, but I wanted to, because I think given that we had separated as we had because of my injury, and then he's gone on to do what he's done in Japan, and I've been holding it down here. I think I had to show that I could do this at a high level. And I don't care what anyone says. That was the match of the year in the UK that year. You can disagree. That's fine. And again, I think that's the one that had the most emotion naturally. It didn't require any gimmicks. It didn't, obviously it's no disqualification, but it didn't require any gimmicks to make the story of the match important.
Yeah. People
cared about it before it, the minute it was announced. You can tell from the jump, if you go back and watch the show where I say, fuck Chris Brooks, fuck CCK, the reaction from the reaction to the previous statement said in the promo versus that moment, you can see how much people care on just that statement alone. And I think the match was a beautiful 25 minutes of what 8 years of being the best of friends can show.
But yeah, last year I was sort of looking for something. I needed like a goal. I needed something to do. And I saw that Hugo Bloom, who is a UBW promoter, he'd signed up for a strongman competition and he'd shared it. And I looked at the women's competition and I thought, I think I could maybe do that. So I signed up for it. It was slightly on a bit of a whim. So I signed up for it and then sort of proceeded to dabble with the events. Not really. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't training that specifically for it. I was continuing doing stuff with the gym and strength training, but not necessarily for the comp. I did the odd day here and there where I picked up some farmers handles and did some things. So I had my first strongman competition last September. Now that was on a weekend where I wrestled at Wet Cake on the Friday and wrestled at UBW on the Saturday. And then I went into the competition on the Sunday. So it wasn't particularly fresh. And for anyone listening, I wouldn't recommend doing that because that's stupid. She says, having done pretty much the same thing again this year. We don't learn lessons here. But yeah, I went into that competition. I actually ended up winning, which was bizarre. But it gave me a bit of a taste for it. Strongman community is really, I think until you've been in it, you don't kind of realize it's so supportive. It's so, I think it probably looks intimidating from the outside, but the variety of people that participate is so incredibly like diverse. I think as a woman, especially, like the shapes and sizes of women that compete in strongman is literally like from the littlest, petitest women to like some of the bigger girls, and everyone is there and everyone is supporting each other and everyone is cheering each other on. Like you're technically competing against each other, but the attitude is kind of like everyone competing against the weight. So I got a coach and then sort of progressed, but because I'd won my first competition, which was a novice level, I had to move up. So I was going into intermediate level this year. So I'd signed up for a competition in March. And then a few weeks before that competition, I got the opportunity to sign up to another one. We were going to the Arnold Sports Festival and they announced that they were going to run a competition. So I signed up for it. And that was like 9 days before the other competition. And I was like, that might be a bit stupid, but we'll see. So I did 2 intermediate competitions within 9 days of each other and then another one about 3 weeks later. And I actually podiumed at all 3 of those as well, which was incredible. So I was like, I got a couple of third places. Yeah, that's at the Arnold's, that one actually. So I came third there completely unexpectedly, like, and then the competition 9 days later, I was really not expecting to podium at all. Like some of the weights were, it was like a deadlift with an axle bar. So the axle bar is really, really thick. It's hard on your grip. And that was for reps. And it was at a weight that was heavier than the heaviest deadlift I'd ever done for 1 rep. So there were certain things in it that was just like, well, there's no way. And it was like, even with the Atlas stones, I think they went up to 100. Did they go up to 100 kg on the day? And I think the most I'd ever done was a PB at the Arnold's 9 days before, where I managed to get the 90 kg stone up. And on the day, I just flew through those stones, and it was like I didn't know what was happening. It was like my body just took over and did it. And then I took a little rest after that. But I actually ended up with a bit of an injury in my back. Must have been around April, May time. That sort of took me out of wrestling and took me out of strongman for a little while. So it was a bit of a weird injury. I'm not exactly sure what caused it, but I had some bruising on my spine, on my vertebrae. So I had to rest it and let it heal. And then September, it was the same competition that I'd won last year, but I was in the open category this year. And that was madness. And I think I came 5th in the end in that one, which is completely, again, unexpected, because at that open level you get really experienced competitors going in. So it's been a really good year for strongman. I am currently taking a bit of a break from strongman at the minute. I've sort of got a couple of things that I just need to rehab and let heal. I think wrestling probably doesn't help those things as well. So I actually recently just signed up with a coach, and I'm actually on a bodybuilding plan at the minute. Not necessarily to compete, just to be clear, but it's the first time I think ever that I'm training purely with aesthetics in mind, which is very strange to me, rather than building strength. But I love strength training. I think I'll go on about it all day, but like women, especially, if you're a woman out there watching this, and you don't strength train, please look into taking it up. It's so important for you, especially your bone density as you get into elderly years, as say some of us. Yeah, I'm a big advocate for it.
Yeah, let's bring up a few more pictures and some very impressive lifts here. And yeah,
I think it's all from the face, to be honest. I think all my strength comes from the faces I pull. I'm convinced of it.
I want to bring up this tweet here. Now, this is from you. This was just before the show. From being told I was too small to wrestle for NGW at Butlins to main event in their biggest event ever, Golden Boy on top. Now, I mean, you know, obviously that main event spot, we'll talk about the match, but that obviously meant so much to you. But yes. I mean, reflecting back on when you were told that you were too small to, you know, main event or to perform for NGW at their Butlin shows, to then, you know, main event in their biggest show ever, however many years later, what did that mean to you?
It meant more as a person rather than as a performer. And that tweet wasn't like in terms of like trying to throw shade or any disrespect or anything like that. It was purely to show where I've come. So to give some background to the statement was, we used to do Butlins shows for NGW where we'd go 6 days a week, 6 weeks in the summer, go from every single Butlins camp in the country. And it was some of the best times of my life. But because of my age and my size and stuff, I had to referee. And I understand the reasons why. I got told the reasons why. So that tweet was purely like, hey, this is how far I've come, and I'm very proud that I was once a referee and now I'm headlining their biggest show ever. So that was purely a cool tweet to put out, because I was like, I finally get to say this. I've come from here and I'm here now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking back to that evening when you had that main event match, stepping behind the curtain or just stepping through the curtain, where was your head at? I'm sure that there was maybe some nerves, but maybe a lot of excitement as well, knowing that, you know, the occasion, the enormity of it all, and maybe your first ever steel cage match.
I'm in a weird place with it in terms of mentally, in the sense of I used to, and I know a lot of wrestlers feel the same, used to be so nervous until you step through the curtain. Once you step through the curtain, you're fine. Everybody fears that moment just before, because you're like, oh, what if everything goes wrong and all this and that? But as soon as you step through the curtain, I'm generally fine. But in the past like 6 months, my feeling before a match is a lot different. Not that I'm too casual or anything, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm about to perform now. And it was the same here. I wasn't as nervous as I thought I'd be for a big opportunity. I was more excited to perform and be like, okay, this is the time. Because I also I know, again, a lot of the wrestlers feel the same, because a lot of other boys were watching. That gives you a bit of motivation. It's like, okay, let's show everybody, let's show all the boys why I'm here, and let's prove to them why I got that opportunity instead of necessarily some other people. So it also gives you a bit of a kick to get going. And I wasn't as nervous as I thought I'd be, which I'm very surprised by. I kind of just like, okay, we're on, cool, let's go. And then once I'm through, I'm in the zone.
And we saw the gear earlier, but that entrance, you know, that entrance alone is just shout superstar all day long. But the cage now, looking at that, it just reminded me of like old school WWF steel cage. You know, you feel like King Kong Bundy and Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 2 sort of steel cage. But I mean, what was it like to wrestle in that cage? And I can only imagine, with it being kind of like solid steel cage, that it was quite punishing, but you know, it gave you a little bit of freedom to kind of experiment while you were in there too.
Yeah, it was weird, because usually when I wrestle, the next day or the day after, I'm like, oh, my back, I can feel my back a little bit from landing on my back and taking those bumps. After this steel cage match, it was all my forearms, because every time I got flung into the cage, I'd rather take pain in my forearms than in my face. So I woke up like, I was some bruised forearms. I was like, I can feel my arms. I'm gonna have to have a few days off the gym because I can't really move them. So it was a different type of pain than I'm used to. Again, because you're used to just absorbing so much from your back. It was a bit of a sore one, to be honest, in its own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you're, a bit of a wrestling historian. You love your kind of old school characters, and you love your pro wrestling. But did you kind of? How did you prep for a match like that? How could you prep for a match like that? Because if it's your first ever steel cage match, I mean, did you kind of watch a lot of old school stuff, or maybe prep in a slightly different way?
It's a unique one. I think it all depends on what audience you're performing in front of. To what, obviously, you can take ideas from every single type of steel cage match that's ever happened, whether it's a cool thing off the top of the cage or one little thing. You can take ideas from everything, but I think in terms of the story we're going to tell and how we're going to wrestle, I think you've got to look at what audience NGW is. And NGW it's not too family, it's not too indie, it's a nice middle ground. So I think I looked at a lot of maybe 90s. I think there was an Owen Hart Bret Hart cage match that I watched. There's a Flair and Dusty Rhodes that I looked at just to see how they told a story within the cage, because I know that's what that audience wants, is that story. They want to see me get beaten up or me do this to Nathan and Nathan gets back on me. They want to see that happen. So that's what we tried to deliver.
Absolutely. Now, in preparation for this, I kind of went through your socials. Also, it gives me a great insight into the individual and, their kind of past, their history, what they like to talk about. And this tweet here, proudest moments for my mum. Obviously, there's the picture of your entrance there as well. And like I said at the top, that was probably maybe one of the best moments of your career, having that match with Nathan in a steel cage, over 1,000 people in Hull. But you described it there as one of the proudest moments of your life.
Yes. For various personal reasons. It was one of the coolest moments of my life, only because of a journey that I've been through for the past few years. To get to that point was cool. It was like, okay, I've gone through all this stuff and I'm here now, and I can keep going. So that's why I was such a proud moment for myself. People will know what's happening. I won't obviously go into detail, but it was, again, a similar story to the Butlins to now. I've gone from here to where I am now. And that's it was more of a journey to that moment that I was proud of. And then that moment kind of like captured that picture captured it.
100%. I'm sure that's a moment and a match and a night that you'll remember forever.
Because I felt a lot of pressure, because I'm not an Adonis. I don't ever profess to be one. I never have done. And I didn't want that arrogance to kind of come through of like, oh, he thinks a lot of himself. And I'd had a few comments where people were like, oh, he's not that big to be called Adonis, is he? He's not that carved out. And I know that probably shouldn't affect it, but I wanted something that I was comfortable with. And the more and more promos that I was filming throughout sort of 2023, 2024, and the more time I had on the mic and the more time it was being announced, and I was facing like the top talent with all really cool names, and I was like, I'm just not really a big fan of mine. Like I love the gimmick that I've got, and I love the tag team, the Odyssey. I think that sort of was a blessing in disguise that I'd picked the name Adonis and that Artemis came around at the right time and we were able to do that. So that was very much the catalyst for me moving towards Ares. Ares, of course, being the god of war. My style of wrestling has always been that I like a war. I love taking bumps. Like a load of my close friends will tell you, I'm an absolute idiot when it comes to match planning, and I'll always pick silly ideas, and I'll be like, yeah, you can give me a powerbomb on the apron, fine. Like I work from home on Monday, so I don't need to travel anywhere. Artemis will tell you, like, we'll be planning a tag match and somebody will have like a really cool move, and I'll go from being planned in to do the hot tag to suddenly I'm taking the heat because my hand's up going, I want to take that move. I want to see how good I can make it look, or if I can do it, or how I can do it. So for me, like, I love being involved in a war. I think both of my matches with Jay Joshua have just been complete wars. Like I've felt them on the Monday, but I've given as good as I've got. And that's my way of wrestling, is I like the fans believing that I am pretty much dead and buried and then somehow fighting through that. And that's, again, it goes back to the feedback that I've had throughout the year of how I can make that work even better. So for me, Aries was easy. The Chris side of it just came from being me, really. I mean, in normal life, I'm Chris. So I was like, what name is going to be more comfortable to me than my own? And it's still taken some getting used to. Like when we were doing the tag match at Dragon Kingdom, Artemis shouting Chris or Aries to me was a bit like, what are you doing? Like, whilst I'm trying to get beaten up before I make a tag, it was a little bit weird, and I think it's going to take years. You know, it was 3 years of my career being called Adonis Payne. It was 3 years of work that I've put into it, but I just felt like I needed the change. I think to make the next step up, I needed a change. I had a few promotions tell me that it was a bit of a sticking point, my name beforehand, and I agree with them. I can't say that I think it's harsh or a harsh bit of feedback. You know, you've got to be honest. And if a promoter is looking at me and going, your name doesn't suit, they're not going to want to put that on their show, and that's every right for them to have that opinion. I wasn't feeling my own name, so who am I to tell other people that they're wrong for not feeling it either?
Let's jump to some more fan questions because they keep piling up, and if I don't ask them now, I never will. We've got two very similar questions here. First of all, let's have a look. We've got Dan Williams watching us live at home. Hard to look past the absolute barnstormer that was the Nico Angelo match. And I think that was from day 10, about June of last year. And we also had Wrestling Outsiders again. So many great moments, but the match with Nico Angelo was a standout. Looking forward to what's next. Now, I've spoken to you in person, and I've also spoken to Nico in person. And that match that you had when you were the future-proof champion was one of the best matches I've ever seen. I think that the two of you had incredible chemistry. I think it was the first time that you two had worked together. And of course, you may have already mentioned it, that Nico is one of the coaches at New Wave as well. But I think with your babyface fire and the fight and the struggle that you demonstrated during that match, which is what it's all about and what Aluna does better than anybody, and the punishment that Nico Angelo put onto you, it main evented that show, and it was every bit worthy of a main event. It delivered, and like I say, it was not just my match of the year, it's one of my matches of all time, and I was privileged to have seen it. But what are your recollections of that match against Nico Angelo?
So to be able, whenever you get to wrestle one of your coaches, it's always very exciting because you know it's going to be a huge learning experience. Nico is someone that I'd never wrestled previously in the ring. Obviously, we've worked together at training, but we've never wrestled in ring. So to be able to work with him at United, somewhere that means a huge amount to me, was very, very exciting. To main event and to put the Future Proof title on the line was, yeah, it was pretty cool. And I did some moves in that match that I've never done before. But it's kind of, it's about having the utmost trust in your opponent. And obviously with Nico, that's, you know, always going to be the case. So yeah, that match, I remember how I felt in that match. And that match was one of the ones that really started to kind of, like you said, build up the fire and like the never give up attitude that Aluna has. That match was definitely one of the highlights to kind of bring that emotion of the match to the forefront.
Absolutely. And that match is available on United Wrestling's YouTube channel. I checked it out myself again, probably for the 10th time the other day in preparation for this, just to relive, honestly, one of my favorite matches of all time. And it really was a perfect combination of, you know, you and your fire and your grit and your determination, and Nico Angelo and his, you know, his kind of hard hitting technique. But was you sore after the match? I probably saw you after the match and interviewed you after the match, but I'm sure that I mean, let's be honest, a lot of your opponents, Simon Quest, Tommy Kyle, Nico Angelo, they're hard hitting and they put you through the ringer every single time. But you know, you always come back with a smile and, you know, swinging. But you must have been hurting after some of their matches.
They're definitely hard hitting. You know, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like it's always fun for me to go back to work, like my real life job, on a Monday morning, and you know, explain to them what I've done at the weekend, and you know, what part of me hurts, and what silly things I've jumped off, or you know, like the stupid things that we do. So yeah, I think I've definitely had a few matches this year where I've come back on a Monday morning and I'm a little bit sore, but honestly, it's so worth it.